This house was probably built in the late 1800s, and it was called the Orchard Cottage because when you go out and look at the grounds, there's only one left on this piece of property and two left over next door, but there were 12 or 15 beautiful apple trees here, and it was actually an orchard cottage. So we planted one in the front, a new little apple tree, and then, of course, there's the stately old one in the back that you'll see. We were able to find an old repo, but these are new, actually, made by North Star stove, which just seemed to fit this little window that faces out on the street because driving down the street, I always used to see Mrs. Morgan standing here working on her stuff in the morning. So we were able to, and if you pull back a little, you'll see that we kept all the details in the kitchen. All the little wood trims were like that. These are French schoolhouse posters, and then they asked me just to do one little bouquet for the kitchen, and that was our little bouquet that we did, strawberries and cherries, of course, to match the wallpaper, and a little bottle of fresh cream, and it kind of keeps it in the spirit of the day.
Here we are at Orchard Cottage in the Perennial garden. This has been somewhat renovated, and now you can see hostas, some of which are in flower. Mostly hostas are grown for their leaves, and there in flower you'll see ferns there which do not flower but give a very nice effect in the garden. Then the ones in flower are stilbes, the bright pink one, the light pink, which is probably the variety Rhineland, and then the darker one, the darker pink, is probably Bremen. A lot of them were German varieties, and they did a lot of growing stilbes in Germany. Then we have plants such as lavenders and many other different perennials. There's a few small delphiniums that will be good later on. Also, some right at the end, there's taller thalictrums that will be in flower. They'll get up to be 7 or 8 feet tall and have lavender flowers. Lavender mist is the one that's best known. They are apple trees, and they were planted fairly recently, as were many of the berries just the other side, just in front of the umbrellas there. Blackberries and currants and blueberries, and some raspberries right in front there. Then beyond that is the pool with the fountain and the beautiful bridge there, which reminds one of France. The vegetable garden is sort of intertwined down there, and there are some fairly small plants growing up, everything from cabbage to tomatoes, whichever way you want to say it, and also quite a few other different vegetables. You can see probably right near the base, there's a clothesline that comes right to the deck here. So for drying clothes, that's an absolutely ideal spot. Not to have to go down and hang up your clothes. You can just draw the clothes in on the clothesline when they're dry and so forth. So that makes it easy. And the apple tree, I wouldn't hazard a guess as to how old it is, but I would say it's probably 80 to 100 years old, maybe older than that. That is normally upright to about often up to 5 feet tall. Whereas the plants next to it, the 2 white bushes just to the right, and then a green patch of foliage there. I'm not sure what they are from this distance, but the white flowers are the mountain laurel, which is the state flower. The rhododendron we're showing now has finished flowering. It flowered about 2 weeks ago and has finished. Rhododendrons, back in England we had one called Christmas Cheer that would flower around Christmas time in England, believe it or not. And we had varieties that also flowered as late as August. So rhododendrons can come from all parts of the world, and some have very tiny leaves, less than an inch across, and there's some varieties from the Himalayan areas that have leaves that are over 3 feet long. So you can imagine there's a lot of rhododendron species and varieties.